glasses don't stay on the mask. I don't think I'm gonna be able to keep this on the whole time. Oh, I guess I gotta ditch it. Hey everyone, it's Nathan with Crown and Caliber. And
I didn't see you there.
Oh, there you are. Currently, I'm wearing a Spider-Man costume. It's YouTube, there are no rules, so we are talking about the Avengers and what watches they would wear. So we're gonna have some fun today, go through our favorite Avengers and pick watches for them to wear. So let's get started. All right, so up first in our watches for the Avengers is going to be the watch of Captain America. Now for Captain America, we kind of thought about holistically, he represents this patriotism of America. Steve Rogers is turned into a superhuman in World War II and is granted probably one of the more iconic weapons, which is his shield. And Captain America's shield was made of vibranium. Now, vibranium is the rarest metal on Earth and only exists in Wakanda, which was the hidden country and is home to Black Panther. So for that, we were trying to kind of pull all of those together, and we came up with the Weiss Watch Company limited edition ultralight titanium field watch. Now we think this watch is awesome for a number of reasons. For starters, it is a limited edition watch. So maybe not as rare as Captain America's shield and vibranium, but still pretty hard to come by. Now the devil's in the details in this watch because at first glance, it looks just like a Weiss 42mm field watch. But as you dig in, you realize that the case is made from a high-grade titanium, so already making it more exotic and more lightweight. But then the movement, the caliber 1003 is made of 7075 anodized aluminum. So what you have is an extremely light, durable movement because it's anodized and something that no other watch manufacturer is doing. So we have a watch that is made in America out of ultralight, rare materials and is a limited edition watch. And that is the perfect watch to complement Captain America and the classic Captain America shield. The Weiss Ultralight Limited Edition Titanium Field Watch. So wrapping up Captain America, up next is his frenemy. We are gonna do Iron Man and the larger than life persona of Tony Stark. Now for Iron Man and Tony Stark, we were thinking of a watch that had to kind of play both sides of that. That larger than life character of Tony Stark had to come through, but the just sheer technology that is in the Iron Man suits that he designs also has to come through. And we thought a perfect watch for that was the Bulgari Octo Finissimo Chronograph GMT Ultra Thin. Now this watch is packed with tons of features that remind us of both Tony Stark and Iron Man. In regards to Tony Stark, this watch is just crazy. It is a watch that Bulgari says, hey, we're gonna make a watch like this because we can, and what's more Tony Stark than that? And in regards to Iron Man, this watch is made of titanium. Now, the original Iron Man suit was said to be made of a nickel titanium alloy, one of these fantastical metals that the Marvel Universe makes up. This watch has a sandblasted titanium case, a matching titanium bracelet, and a matching sandblasted titanium dial. Now, internally beating inside this watch is an ultra-thin chronograph GMT movement. So when you look at the case back, you see that it looks like a manual wound movement, but if you look closer, the circle on the outside of the movement is actually this peripheral rotor. And I don't know, when I look at it, I kind of think of what keeps Tony Stark alive, his arc reactor. It's a mini nuclear power plant smack dab in the center of his chest. And when you look at the back of this watch, it kind of just has this feeling of a crazy technology that's making this run. I mean, a peripheral rotor is crazy in and of itself, not to mention in a watch that is less than 7mm thick. This watch is the thinnest chronograph GMT watch with an automatic movement that exists. So all in all, you have a ultralight titanium watch with crazy design elements, a monochromatic color scheme that just rocks. And what better watch to pair with Tony Stark and Iron Man than the Bulgari Octo Finissimo Ultra Thin GMT chronograph. Up next in our watches for the Avengers is the Black Panther. Now he's an interesting character because he has a separate persona in that he is the king of Wakanda, known as T'Challa. But why this is interesting is it's not that normal superhero secret identity. It's more like Tony Stark in the fact that if you live in Wakanda, you know that your king, T'Challa, happens to also be the protector of Wakanda in Black Panther. And so we were thinking of a watch that was fit for royalty and kind of this idea of a not so secret secret. And nothing fits that better than a Rolex Oyster Perpetual Day-Date President. and specifically one that is in platinum with a black dial. And this is perfect because you may not know that it's platinum. It may just appear to be a stainless steel Rolex. And it's that not so secret and the duality of the fact that it's actually a precious rare metal, one of the rarest metals in the earth, which also happens to be cool because Wakanda is home to vibranium, the rare earth metal that Captain America's shield is made of and landed as a meteor in Wakanda millions of years ago. So there's that cool connection. But this watch also works in the diplomatic, king-like state that T'Challa holds for Wakanda and represents to the world. So the perfect watch for Black Panther and T'Challa is none other than the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Day-Date President in platinum with a gloss black dial. All right, so up next is the Hulk. And before you just say, well, this one's easy, that's a layup, it kind of is. But again, we have this two-sided element, and that's what's super cool about superheroes. And so with Bruce Banner and the Hulk, we wanted to have kind of two watches. And we'll first start off and say, the Hulk is getting the Hulk. I mean, he has to. The Rolex Submariner that is called the Hulk is the perfect watch. It's that blocky super case. It's just chunky like the Hulk. It's called the Hulk. It's green. It's perfect. But for Bruce Banner, at first it was like, well, maybe he just gets a black dial Submariner. But as we dug a little deeper and we wanted something that was a little bit more fitting for his personality, we decided to go with the Rolex Milgauss. And here's why. The Rolex Milgauss is designed ultimately for scientists. It's a watch that has such a high Gauss rating that it is protected from magnetic fields. And, Bruce Banner became the Hulk because of radiation, so this watch wouldn't have helped him, but it does give deference to him being a scientist. And I think a kind of cool nod to it is the fact that we picked one with the green crystal. So there's kind of this hidden element where it's like there has to always be a tinge of green there because it's ready to come out at the slightest moment. So the perfect watches for Bruce Banner and the Hulk are the Rolex Milgauss and none other than the Rolex Submariner Anniversary Edition, the Hulk. So next up is Thor. Now Thor is wholly unique in the fact that Thor comes from mythology. He is the Norse god of thunder, and he is not from this world. He comes from a different realm known as Asgard, and that kind of puts him in a separate playing field from other superheroes. Now, Thor wields the hammer known as Mjolnir. It was given to him by his father, and he is the only one that has the power to wield it. There's actually an inscription on the hammer that says, "Whosoever holds this hammer, if they be worthy, possesses the power of Thor." Now, we're not going to get too deep into the Marvel universe, but basically nobody else possesses the power to hold this hammer. That is Thor. And so when we were thinking of the perfect watch for Thor, it had to be something that was wholly different than your typical watch. And that is none other than the H. Moser & Co. Swiss Alp Concept Black. Now, if I just said a bunch of words that mean nothing to you, well then sit tight because I'll explain them for you. H. Moser & Co. is an ultra high-end niche Swiss luxury watchmaker. And the Swiss Alp Concept Black takes that to a whole different level. Now, this watch looks like an Apple Watch, actually looks like an Apple Watch, but that is where the similarities end. This is a 40mm platinum case watch that has no hands. And this is where things get really cool. The watch has a minute repeater. Now, minute repeaters are pretty rare, but I can't think of another minute repeater that has no hands. And that is what's super cool, is only the person that wears that watch can chime the time and know what the time is. And that just seemed to fit this idea of Thor and the hammer and Mjolnir perfectly. And not to mention, this watch also has a tourbillon. And in French, that roughly means tornado. And if you wield Mjolnir, you can command storms. He's the god of thunder. It seemed like a layup. Oh, and yeah, this watch has the out of this world price tag of $350,000. So that is the perfect watch for Thor, the H. Moser & Co. Swiss Alp Concept Black, because whosoever wears this watch, if they be worthy, possesses the power to tell the time. So next up in our watches for the Avengers is Hawkeye, and Hawkeye does not get a watch. Hawkeye doesn't have superpowers. I don't even, why is he a superhero? I don't know. So he's not getting a watch. And if you're watching this and you're saying, well, Tony Stark doesn't have superpowers. Yeah, but Tony Stark invented Iron Man, so there's that. Moving on. Next up, we're going to talk about Black Widow. And this is a perfect transition because Black Widow, guess what, actually has superpowers. Black Widow is effectively the Russian counterpart to Captain America. She was part of their secret program to create a super soldier, and then she ends up going rogue. So you basically have a rogue Russian super soldier in Black Widow, and she is one of the good guys. So for her, we wanted something that was tactical, that felt superhuman, and nothing is better than that than the Breitling Colt Sky Racer. Now this watch, for starters, is murdered out black with red accents, so check, kind of looks like a Black Widow. It is tactical in every way, but when you start to dig into the details, this is where it feels superhuman. The watch is made of Breitling's proprietary composite material called Breitlight, so effectively a plastic watch, but where things are crazy is this material is 6 times lighter than steel and 3 times lighter than titanium. And the watch all in all weighs 35 grams. I mean, that is almost non-existent, but it doesn't stop there. Inside the watch is Breitling's Super Quartz. And if you need another reason to pick a watch for a superhero, then the movement has super in the title, I think that's a pretty good reason. But the Super Quartz is truly super. This movement is accurate to within 10 seconds a year. That's nearly 20 times more accurate than a regular quartz movement. And this is all thanks to thermocompensation. That is pretty super, and that's why this is the perfect watch for Black Widow. We have a tactical, murdered out black watch with red accents that in every way is superhuman. All right, so rounding out our favorite Avengers and the watches they would wear is none other than Spider-Man! You had to see that one coming, guys. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. As a kid, he was someone that I related to, both as Spider-Man, but also as Peter Parker. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, Peter Parker was just a teenager. He had teenager problems and he was a nerd. And newsflash, guys, I was kind of a big nerd too. So it just makes sense that we were gonna round out with Spider-Man. I mean, I'm wearing a Spider-Man costume. And those things I just said that describe Peter Parker are perfect in his relatability and kind of his unassuming nature. And you may almost forget that, guess what? This teenager also has superpowers. I mean, he was bit by a radioactive spider out of Oscorp. But not only does he have superhero powers, he is also a genius. And so with all of these factors together, we were trying to think of a watch brand that was kind of unassuming, but packed a punch. And the perfect watch for Spider-Man and Peter Parker is the Grand Seiko SBG P005. And if that model name doesn't speak to the unassuming nature of Grand Seiko, I don't know what does. But seriously, Grand Seiko is a Japanese brand, and Japanese culture has such a reverence for humility, and Grand Seiko is not a brand that is going to beat you over the head with how great their watches are. And that makes them somewhat unassuming and really approachable, and that's why the SBG P005 is so great. It is a stainless steel watch in 40 millimeters with a beautiful deep blue dial, and it has a quartz movement that is accurate to within 10 seconds a year. And guess what? So is Breitling Super Quartz, and they're gonna let you know that it is, and I think that speaks to this humility of Grand Seiko and the unassuming nature of a watch that just looks like any other watch, but is exceptional. It is superhero in its timekeeping, and not to mention its level of finish. This is something that Seiko does better than almost anyone. And so that is why we think that the SBG P005 is the perfect watch to represent Spider-Man and Peter Parker. All right, guys, so there you go. There are the watches that we have picked for our favorite Avengers. Please let us know in the comments below, first off, how absurd I look in a costume, but more importantly, watches that you would pick for your favorite Avenger. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.